What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix for Week 5 of the 2021 CFL season. I'm Ryan Coop here with a Sunday depth chart update for the final 3 games of the Labor Day weekend. We had the Friday night game between Montreal and Ottawa, which delivered a lot of great fantasy performances. And now you're probably trying to get your lineup set for these final 3 games of the week. Maybe have some tinkering to do based on some of the lineups that have come out. So I figured I'd put a quick update out here for you as I go through all of the depth charts for these final 3 games. It starts off today just in under 4 hours time with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Saskatchewan to face the Riders. And a couple notables from the depth chart for the Bombers. Andrew Harris, who missed a few days of practice this week, is set to go, is listed as the starter at running back. For Winnipeg, Brady Oliveira will be his backup again this week. Nick Dembski draws back into the lineup after missing the past 2 games and will take Kelvin McKnight's place in the starting lineup. So Darvin Adams, Rasheed Bailey, Kenny Lawler, Nick Dembski, and Drew Wolotarski are your starting receivers for Winnipeg. And with Dembski back in the lineup, he had a solid first 2 games this year. He seems to be on a solid path. I expect that maybe means he takes a couple targets away from guys like a Rasheed Bailey or a Darvin Adams this week, so that may lower their production slightly, but I expect them to still be big factors in the offense with Dembski back. And like I said, Kelvin McKnight, who's had kind of steady, low production, a couple catches each week, will not be in the lineup this week. And no Naaman Roosevelt for the Bombers this game. He started practicing on Friday after just joining the team. It's a Sunday game, not enough turnaround to get him in the lineup, but I expect him to be in next week for the Bombers. Other than that, no notable changes on offense or defense. Of course, Zach Collaros, your starter at quarterback. Looking at Saskatchewan side of things, Cody Fajardo in at quarterback. Of course, William Powell in at running back. At wide receiver, still no Shaq Evans. He's still on the 6-game injured list. You've got your mainstays, Kyron Moore, Jordan Williams-Lambert, who left the game against Ottawa 2 weeks ago with an injury. He's ready to go and will be playing and starting at wideout. Braden Lenius, Mitchell Picton also in wide receiver. They've been solid fantasy plays so far this year. And instead of Paul McRoberts Jr., who played last week, wide receiver Ricardo Lewis will get his first start in the CFL for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Another good value play who ended up having good performance last time around, Kyan Schaffer-Baker, is listed as his backup. So if you're banking on a repeat performance from him again this week, you may want to be cautious there because if he's the backup, I'm not sure how many targets he gets his way. Also notably, punt returner Marcus Murphy out this week. He has been handling punt return duties while Luches Purifoy, defensive back, has been handling kickoffs. I wouldn't be surprised to see Purifoy get the full return duties this week for the Riders. Getting into the Monday matchups, let's start with Toronto and Hamilton. The Argos will be without wide receiver Ricky Collins Jr. this week. He's been in COVID protocol all week and is not quite ready to go. And in his place, Damien Jean-Pierre will get his first CFL start at wide receiver. Devaris Daniels left the game against Winnipeg with an injury after a big hit in week 3. He is ready to go and is slated as a starter this week as well. Your full starting wide receiver crew for the Argos, Devaris Daniels, Eric Rogers, Daniel Braverman, Curley Gittin Jr., and Damien Jean-Pierre. So those are the starters. Again, no Juwan Brescison still, no Ricky Collins Jr. At quarterback, Nick Arbuckle gets another straight start, which is no surprise there. And at running back, John White listed as the starter, DJ Foster listed as the backup. So will White get the full carry load, or will we see a dual back system? I wouldn't be surprised to see a dual back system again this week between those 2 running backs. So I'd say proceed with caution if you're thinking of putting John White in your running back in this matchup. On the Ticats side of things, Dane Evans gets another start at quarterback. Jeremiah Mazzoli on the one-game injured list, so David Watford will be the backup QB there. But Dane Evans, of course, should get the start and play the whole game unless something goes terribly wrong. At running back, Don Jackson finally slides into the lineup for the first time this year and will slot in as the backup to Sean Thomas Erlington. It wouldn't surprise me to see him get a few of the reps and take those away from Thomas Erlington. So there, I'm a bit more cautious in that regard. Do they try to go for a dual back system? But I still expect Thomas Erlington to get the bulk of the carries. Same wide receivers as last week. Again, Braylon Addison, DeVere Posey still on the 6-game injured list. So Brandon Banks, Jalen Acklin, Stephen Dunbar Jr., Tim White, and David Unger III are your wide receivers for the Ticats. Notably on defense, Jagarrett Davis back after missing last game due to breaking COVID protocols, and the rest of the D-line appears to be healthy and ready to go. So very solid defensive line of Jagarrett Davis, Ted Laurent, Dylan Wynn, and Julian Hauser, which is going to be great for that Ticats defense to get them all back and to have everybody healthy. And then finally, getting into the final game of the week, Calgary and Edmonton. Bo Levi Mitchell was practicing this week, was a full participant in practice just a couple weeks after suffering a broken fibula, which is remarkable, by the way. But he is not quite ready to go yet. So Jake Mayer gets himself another start this week. Mayer was my top value play projected quarterback this week. He's the guy I have in my lineup at the quarterback position, and good to see him go out and get another chance after setting a franchise record last week with consecutive completions in the first half. Richie Sindani draws back in at wide receiver, so Colton Hunchak will move back to the backup position. Neither of those guys seem to typically get a whole lot of targets their way. At quarterback, I mentioned Jake Mayer. At running back, it will be the tandem of Kadeem Carey and Ante Milanovic leader again this week, with Calvin McCarty listed as the fullback. Longtime member of the Edmonton organization, facing off in this big rivalry game as a member of the Calgary Stampeders. It's going to be weird to see him out there. Most certainly, and it's going to be an interesting matchup to watch and see how he performs in his first game with Calgary. At wide receiver, Josh Huff, Markeith Ambles, Kamar Jordan, and Richie Sandani and Herji Mayala are your starters there. I expect Huff and Ambles and Jordan to lead the way as the three big targets for Jake Mayer. On offensive line, two notables from the last game missing this time around for Calgary, Julian Good-Jones and Ryan Sevier, both not ready to go. So missing a couple pieces there that Jake Mayer had protecting him against the Bombers the week before. And looking at the Edmonton side of things, they had so many players in COVID protocol throughout the week, missing some practice. Some of them did not practice. Some were limited. They will have the majority of their starting lineup in this week. Most of their receivers were listed on COVID protocol, but Darrell Walker is ready to go, will be in the starting lineup. Greg Ellingson also at wide receiver. Mike Jones is in as well. Shai Ross appears ready to play, but will be the backup to Ernest Edwards. Yes, I have been corrected. That's Ernest Edwards, not Armonte Edwards, back in the starting lineup this week. So no Armonte Edwards once again, but Ernest Edwards will get a start at wide receiver with Shai Ross, his backup. Jalen Tolliver also gets to slot in at slot back as well, or at receiver as well, for the Elks. So Walker, Ellingson, Ernest Edwards, Mike Jones, and Jalen Tolliver, with Trevor Harris throwing them the ball, and James Wilder Jr. at running back. The Elks will have a couple changes on the offensive line this week. Most notably, no Jacob Ruby after he was released for breaking COVID protocols is the biggest change there for them. And on defense, they will be without a couple of big pieces. No Bieria at middle linebacker and no Dominic Rhymes at defensive back. So those are the changes and the notables from the depth charts for all the teams yet to play this week. Make sure you set your lineups accordingly. Make sure you don't have somebody in there who's not going to play this week, because that could really hurt your fantasy week to have that happen. Stay tuned on Twitter as well each and every week. If I don't get these video depth chart updates out, I go and tweet out any notables from them there as well. You can follow me at CooperTrooper42 on Twitter. Do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't. If you have any fantasy questions, put them in the comments section, tweet them at me. I'm always happy to answer them and talk fantasy football with all of you. That's why I do this, because it's always great time. Best of luck with the rest of week number 5, and I will be back early next week to recap week 5 and start previewing week 6 here on the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix. As always, thanks for watching and enjoy this weekend's games. Bye.